Many thanks to you, Mr. Speaker, for hosting the ceremony once again this year in the splendid surroundings of your august emporium. And also great thanks to the Deputy Prime Minister for hosting our awards launch at the Admiralty House earlier in the year. Now, for those of you who haven't been here before, very quickly, here's how it works. MPs are nominated by individuals and are then asked to provide information about their work with underrepresented, deprived and minority communities. To this was added research by the Patchwork Foundation, and all this documentation was then provided to the independent judges who had no indication at all of the MPs' names, gender or party. In fact, no clues at all. I mean, Sherlock Holmes wouldn't have cracked this one, I can promise you. And then our judges got to work. So huge thanks to them, to Shabir Andri, the chairman of Mosaic, appointed chairman of Mosaic incidentally just over 2 weeks ago, so huge congratulations to him. Simon Woolley, the founder of Operation Black Vote. Tony Pierce, the national president of NUS. Andrea Cooper, the director of Uprising. Daniela Shaw-Gabe and Yasmin Akhtar from the Three Faiths Forum, Jonathan Freeman, the National Director of Mosaic, and Sophie Stevens, the Senior Organiser for Citizens UK. Huge thanks to all of them. And now we have a very special message for you for this ceremony from the Prime Minister.
I want to send my best wishes to everyone at the MP of the Year Awards. The Patchwork Foundation has a simple but vital task to show that politics is for everyone. Everyone cares about the money in their pocket, whether they've got a job. Everyone cares about their local hospital, how safe their streets are. And all of these things, they all come back to politics and government. So Patchwork says, whether you're young or old, black, white or Asian, you should be engaged in politics. But there are still too many people who feel shut out. In 2010, less than half of people between the age of 18 and 24 actually voted. And those from black and ethnic minority backgrounds were 3 times less likely to be registered to vote. Patchwork is helping us to change that. Whether it's encouraging voter registration, running classes on campaigning, or hosting town hall style debates, you are helping to open up politics. Today's awards are another excellent way of doing that. So I want to thank the Patchwork Foundation for what they do and congratulate whoever is named MP of the Year.
And I have to tell you that the real significance of that is that we now have the leaders of all 3 main political parties very firmly putting their weight behind this award ceremony and the Patchwork Foundation, which is really terrific. Now, this couldn't happen without help, including financial help from an awful lot of people. And Jonathan Holt, who is a director, a partner in the KPMG Manchester office, has stepped up to the plate, as it were, and I'd like to give him an opportunity to say just a few words, because it's a great thing that KPMG do to make a ceremony like this possible. So over to you, Jonathan.
Thank you very much. KPMG are delighted to sponsor these awards to help Patchwork continue to encourage underrepresented communities connect with the political process. The work they've done through their volunteers and the time that they give really is inspiring. I've seen this firsthand myself. We hosted them in our Manchester office. It was an absolutely fantastic event, and it led to this sponsorship because we were so impressed as an office with that event. At KPMG, we hosted a series of events promoting the importance of inclusion within the workplace, and as part of that, for the first time ever, we published the diversity mix of our staff. We also set very clear targets for partners in terms of disability, sexual orientation, gender, and also ethnicity. And just like politics, business has an important part to play in this in terms of changing our society. And thank you very much.
Jonathan, thank you very much, and thanks again to KPMG and our host, I think, for the 2nd time for these awards. But it's really terrific that we are able to use these splendid apartments here in the Speaker's House the Speaker himself, John Bercow. John.
I am tickled, I confess, by your spontaneous reference to my august emporium, of the existence of which I will now inform my 3 small children, and in the spirit of trying to establish that knowledge gained is knowledge retained, I am thinking in terms of testing them on a regular basis that they have registered that we live in an august emporium. And I will regard that as a great mark of progress when they have digested that key nugget of information. Look, it's great to be here, and at the risk of repetition, but I think worthwhile repetition, I would like to underline what you, Martin, have said and what has been referenced by the party leaders themselves. The Patchwork Foundation deserves enormous credit and every accolade accorded to it for the pioneering and priceless work that it does in promoting the integration of previously and often currently deprived, minority and isolated communities into the practice of mainstream politics. Consistent, I think, colleagues, if I may say so, with the best of the themes, in fact, with virtually all of the themes that we champion, mark and celebrate here in Speaker's House. I can see myself simply from looking around Speaker's House at my parliamentary colleagues that the Patchwork Foundation has secured buy-in from across the political spectrum. And that's not just because MPs have turned up in the hopeful expectation of winning an award, though that is a perfectly legitimate aspiration for them to entertain. I think they are here from the different parties because they believe in the cause. I know that to be true from looking at many of the faces around Speaker's House. I think that the work that is done is very important, and it is a huge tribute to those colleagues in Parliament who have been nominated either by a supportive and admiring individual or by a community organisation, quite often a constituency-based organisation, for either the innovative character or the sheer persistence and consistency of the work that they've done to promote that integration. I hope that the Patchwork Foundation won't themselves take umbrage if I suggest that there is, in a sense, an analogy between the Patchwork Foundation on the one hand and the Office of Speaker on the other, and that is that both of us are unaffiliated. We are not affiliated to any party. What you are seeking to do is to promote that mainstream political participation by people interested in public service, regardless of the particular point of view or affiliation that they hold. And that's my approach, obviously, in Parliament as well. It's perhaps just worth saying, so that you don't think if you come from outside the House, that colleagues here are exclusively focused on the subject of parliamentary representation, that the House of Commons as an employer has got an important job to do in trying to promote diversity amongst the people who work in and for it, not in an elected capacity, but in other roles. We are making progress, but I'm keenly conscious that we've still got a lot more progress to make if the staff complement of the House, which is a massively professional and dedicated staff complement, is to look a bit more like the country that we aspire to represent. It remains, sadly, the case, despite some real progress, that in a number of respects, we've got the challenges that other organisations have got. We have got a disproportionate share, for example, of the BME community working in some of the more junior roles, important and valued, but junior roles in the House. And we've got a real challenge to ratchet up the number of people from those communities who are serving at every level of our organisation. I say that not in any sense to put a dampener on proceedings, because progress has been made, and our diversity and inclusion team, led by Anne Foster, who's a fantastic staffer, is very, very strategic and making real inroads, and I'm in contact with her on these matters literally every week. But I say it as an indication that we're not complacent. We're not saying we've got it sorted or that it's only the elected side to which we have to attend. We have to look at, as I say, the makeup of our staff and devise new and innovative ways of improving the diversity of our representation, including taking advice from people who have got expertise from elsewhere, be it in the public or the private or the voluntary sector, in translating diversity from an aspiration to a fact. Now, I am very conscious that you are keenly awaiting the results. I see my parliamentary colleagues arrayed in front of me, desperately seeking to suppress their latent ambition and to ensure that it does not become too manifest. But they want to know the results. They want to know if they've won. They want to know perhaps if their friends have won. And from the prospect of an award to them or their friends, they should not be separated for too much longer. So thank you for coming. Thank you to Martin, and I mean it with great sincerity. I think he's an inspiration on these matters, and I hope you will choose to keep coming to these awards and that you will note the esteem in which the Patchwork Foundation is held by me and by all of my parliamentary colleagues. And if, when we have finished the presentation of awards, you are at least averagely nosy and you fancy having a decker around Speaker's House, including looking in the bedroom, though it is not a bedroom I myself inhabit, you are very welcome to do so. We are getting towards the moment of the announcements. Thank you very much indeed for coming.
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much indeed. And I think in the style of Chris Tarrant, I should now say, here are the results after the break. But I won't delay things any further. Let us go straight now into the first category, which is the Conservative MP of the Year. And the winner is Eric Pickles, the MP for Brentwood and Ongar and Community Secretary.
I couldn't be happier to receive this. It's a great organisation. This is a tremendous honour. Thank you very much indeed. It will be on the pride of place in my home this evening. Thank you.
The runner-up for Conservative MP of the Year was actually a tie. And it was two MPs. If I could ask them to come up one at a time so that we can then do the photographs one at a time. But they were Justine Greening, the MP for Putney and Secretary of State for International Development, and Andrew Mitchell, the MP for Sutton Coldfield. Justine Greening. Andrew Mitchell. Now we come to the Labour MP of the Year, and the winner is Keith Vaz from Leicester East.
Thank you. I'm delighted to receive this award today. It's a huge honour and I feel very humbled at being chosen by all those associated with the Patchwork team. My thanks to Harris and his incredible army of supporters. But I'm glad to have been able to receive this award from someone who I admire greatly as one of the great parliamentarians of our time, Mr. Speaker Bercow. And I feel if there was going to be an MP of the Year, it really ought to be he who wins this award, not just for this year, but every single year. I will cherish it and treasure it, and I will make sure that I will continue to support the wonderful work of Patchwork. Thank you very much.
It is David Lammy, MP for Tottenham, who is the runner-up. The Liberal Democrat MP of the Year is Tim Farron, the MP for Westmoreland and Lonsdale.
So I can't remember ever winning any kind of award at all. Don't all go hard. I've given out thousands normally at school awards ceremonies. So I kind of, on the off chance that I might win, I did go and check. Whether there were any particular models, and obviously I looked for Gwyneth Paltrow. The others, those of you who remember it, I thought actually Father Ted's Acceptance of the Golden Cleric was by far the best model. So I shall be here for about 4 hours, and I'll start with Liars. But that's only for the 3% of you actually ever watched that. Look, I think what Patchwork do is outstanding. I think it's outstanding because what it's about to me is providing people with access to power. And you do that by giving people power themselves. And there are a whole bunch of people in this country, and I probably fit most of these demographics, who either because of their race or their age, background, a whole range of other geography and so on, don't find it that hard to engage in politics and seem to do it really rather well. And good luck to them. But our job surely is to reach out to those communities that don't. And I'm not, I'm not privy to the criteria or to how this was decided and so on, but what I've always sought to do, particularly with younger people, I think I was the only patch in the whole of mainland Britain where a majority of those under 24-year-old voters voted. It's only 51%, mind you, but it was the only place in mainland Britain. Northern Ireland managed it in 2 or 3 places, but only one place in Britain. And I suspect that the reason is that we talk about social media and means of talking to people electronically. That's fine. But social media is only surely a virtual means of getting an actual response. If you don't actually spend time talking to people and being in and amongst their communities and being relevant to them, and then all the Twitter and Facebook and every other form of electronic communication you've got will make very, very little difference. And to my mind, the kind of disconnect with politics is not about politicians being out of touch or not getting it, because in the nicest possible way, these guys around the walls here, I'm going to take a staggering guess that half of them never even went to their constituencies outside of election time, because that's how it used to be. So I think politicians are running more in touch now than they ever were. The problem is, does politics deliver? Does it deliver for you, in your community, your age group, and what have you? And to be honest with you, in our neck of the woods, so I represent a massive rural patch up in the north of England, and it's the Lake District, the Yorkshire Dales, and you can imagine that one of the biggest problems we face is the lack of affordable housing, and particularly for younger people and young families. And we managed to build 1,000 council houses for local families. I'll just tell you this story and then I promise to shut up. I went to a primary school in the most underprivileged bit of my patch, where we built some homes, quite a good number of affordable homes locally. And it was a Christmas do, so nearly 2 years ago, and my assistant Holly came along with me. And she sat on one table, I sat on another, and she sat next to this 8-year-old girl, and she said, "Do you know who that is?" pointing at me. And this 8-year-old girl goes, "Yeah, that's Tim Farron." And Holly was dead impressed. She said, "Do you know what he does?" This kid goes, "He gets people houses. He gets people houses." And it normally makes me cry when I tell that story, but I've told it enough now. But the point is, if you can deliver for people, then it doesn't matter what your politics are. It's about believing that the process can lead to an outcome that benefits your family and you and your community. So I'm really genuinely proud to get this, because Patchwork do outstanding work, and I just hope and pray that you will continue to do that. And if I've gone on a bit too long, it's because I've just decided to use up the previous 2 speeches as well. Thank you.
Jim, thanks very much indeed. And the runner-up for Liberal Democrat MP of the Year is Don Foster, the MP for Bath. He's one of the winners for Newcomer MP of the Year, because it was a dead heat. One of them is Anas Sarwal, the MP for Glasgow Central.
I want to just make my thank you to Patchwork and everyone that's been involved in this award. It's an honour to even have been nominated, never mind winning the award. I think it's safe to say that having my first term has been eventful. The events of the election, the events of the Scottish Parliament elections that followed, standing for the deputy leadership, going through a referendum campaign, and then obviously being acting leader now until December. I think it's safe to say I've lived this term, and fast forward, I'm hoping the next term is much calmer. But thank you so much for the award.
The other is Zach Goldsmith, the MP for Richmond Park.
And for those of you who don't know, probably a lot of you will, Zach is the real deal in terms of being an independent-minded representative. It doesn't mean he's the only one, there are lots, but he really is such an example, and he stands up for what he believes to be right, whether it happens to cohere with the view of his party at the time or not.
This is a huge, huge honour. It's an honour for so many different reasons, but principally because I'm a massive fan of Patchwork. And you've already heard Patchwork does extraordinary work, engaging people from all backgrounds, all communities in politics. But I've seen Patchwork in action. I've seen it engaging in raw politics on the doorstep. I've some familiar faces here today who've done just that, all the way to the refined world of the National Portrait Gallery. And it is impressive at every stage across that spectrum. It's a magnificent organisation. I'm really, really honoured to have been recognised by such a great organisation. There's another reason as well, if I can indulge. And Caroline Lucas is here. She won this very prize last year. So to follow in her footsteps, she's one of my great heroes in Parliament, another truly independent member of Parliament, a magnificent figure and someone I'm very pleased to call an honourable friend as well. So that doubles my honour in receiving this prize. Thank you so much.
And there could not be a better segue into our final award, because our final award is overall MP of the Year, and it goes to someone who Zach has just referred to. It goes to Caroline Lucas, the MP for Brighton Pavilion.
These proceedings are about Patchwork and about the winners, but just so that I can prove to you I'm not saying something favourable about somebody from one party and not another, there are people from across the spectrum, from every party here, who are demonstrably independent-minded. And what Zach Goldsmith just said about Caroline was not only gracious, which I always expect from Zach anyway, but absolutely true. And bear in mind that when Caroline came into the House, and I saw this, Martin, colleagues, from the vantage point of the Speaker's chair, she came in to a Parliament still, inevitably perhaps, overwhelmingly dominated by people from the conventionally largest parties. She came in as the parliamentary leader of her party, but its only representative, and has fought not only to establish herself, but to establish recognition of her right from colleagues and from me regularly to speak in debates and to ask questions, and by sheer force of personality and parliamentary insistence and dogged commitment to the chamber, the committees, the procedures of the House, she's advanced her causes, and it shows that it can be done. Maybe it should be made a bit easier for newcomers to do, and I think that's quite a widely held view. But we have to some extent learned from some of our newcomers, and I like to think that, you know, I've picked up some of the messages that Caroline has articulated over recent years, but she has made one hell of an impact in the House, as have all the winners that we've celebrated tonight. Some of them, I'm sorry, couldn't be here, but you know, it was a joy to be able to mark the work of Andrew Mitchell and Justine. Keith Vaz happens to be a personal friend of mine and has done wonderful work, but amongst all the winners, you know, Caroline certainly stands tall, and I hope that you will recognise and reward that with another suitably indulgent round of applause before as well as after she speaks.
I just want to say how genuinely honoured I am to receive this award, and I want to accept it on behalf of all the amazing people that I meet in my role as MP in Brighton Pavilion. These are amazing people who literally every day confront deprivation or disadvantage or underrepresentation, either in their own lives or working with others and on behalf of others. And maybe it is because I'm from one of the smaller parties, but that does make me feel even more determined to try to engage more distant groups, perhaps, who don't necessarily see anything in Parliament that is relevant to them. I find it a real kind of passion to try to engage those people with the parliamentary process and to demonstrate that they can change things. Because I think the most disempowering thing to believe is that you can't make a difference. And so many of these groups, so many of you are making an enormous difference already, and I think that would be a key message that I would want to send. And so those groups in my constituency, I could just name a few, although it's invidious, but there's All Sorts, which is a group that works with young people in the LGBTIQ community. There's the Women's Centre, there's RISE, a domestic violence charity. There's the East Sussex Credit Union that does wonderful work with deprived communities. There's the Fed that does wonderful work with people with disabilities. And all of them have given me such inspiration in the work that they do. So let me just end by saying a huge thank you to Patchwork. People have said many very wise things about the impact that Patchwork has. And I've really seen firsthand how it really is a bridge, I think, for people for whom this place does still seem very remote and very distant. I think Patchwork provides that bridge along which people literally can walk and get in here and feel that they're making a difference. There's a lovely quote from Alice Walker, which I shall probably slightly misquote, for which I apologise, but she says something like, the most common way that people give up power is by thinking that they don't have any. And I think one thing that Patchwork does is to remind everybody, all of us, no matter what community we come from, that we do have power and we can use it and we can make a difference. And so I want to thank you so much for everything that you do. And to thank Zach as well for his incredibly gracious comments. I can't think of a warmer palm that I would like that Newcomers Award to be sitting in than his.
Caroline, thank you very much indeed. And I have to say that one of my favourite quotes is from Yes, Prime Minister, where Sir Humphrey was called in by Jim Hacker, had just been made Prime Minister. And Jim Hacker said, "What, Sir Humphrey, is our policy towards the media?" And Sir Humphrey drew himself up to his full height and replied, "Prime Minister, our policy towards the media is to tell them fully, frankly and freely everything we think they're going to find out anyway." Now, I just wanted to say two things on the back of that, which is that what the Patchwork Foundation is doing needs to be shouted from the rooftops by the media. And on top of that, I think that the work that MPs are doing, demonstrated so splendidly with these awards tonight and the people who have received them, is something that ought to be shouted from the rooftops by our media, because you get a lot of negativity in the media about things going wrong. There's a heck of a lot going on in Parliament that goes right, and Parliament is packed full of well-meaning people trying to improve the world in all kinds of ways. And if that message can be proved by the MPs' work in dealing with the minority communities in the way that they have and helping them in so many ways, if that can be proved through the work of the Patchwork Foundation and through these awards, then so much the better, because it is a message that needs to ring out loud and clear.